is that stakeholders, they tend to dictate everything that gets built. I can take music and I can apply it to product management, but I can't take product management and apply it to music. And I'm listening to it on the headphones on repeat over and over and over and tweaking like the tiniest details to see how it
Mm.
sounds. Those are three things that actually work magically together because it's enjoyment, it's purpose, patience, calm, and flow.
Dean, great to have you here today. Do you want to do a quick intro of who you are, what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dean Kenny, product manager. I've been in product essentially for about nearly 5 years. I came into it through customer support, which I was doing for a couple of years first, and kind of got interested in solving customer problems, mainly from customer support. So I was dealing with all the shouting and screaming on the phone calls of a big tech company called Zendesk at the time, which is like customer support platform with like live chat, chatbots, these types of things. And I just got really frustrated about like, hey, I can't actually help customers when they kind of scream and shout about a bug or something like that. So heard about this thing called design. You design the products. No, that's not really me. I'm not that type of creative. Didn't want to be an engineer because I wasn't that technical. And I found out about this thing called product management, which is kind of the center point of all that. We can talk about
What is that?
different.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what is like, because you were making fun of me earlier for not knowing the difference between product owner, project manager, there's a few of them.
There's a couple. The reason why I was kind of making fun of it is because in the world of product, it's kind of like a red flag for a company to not know their way around product. And if they don't know their way around product, they're not essentially putting the customers first, which means that they can be quite sales or technology led or visionary led. And that never usually has good results for a business long term. And people tend to not be happy in certain companies. So basically, to define what product manager is and the difference between product owners and things like that, is a product manager is essentially like the center point of a certain product where they merge business, um, the business technology and user experience all together. But their sole focus is the customer. So they will be the expert of the customer that you're building the product for, assuming that it's like end user facing. So for me, for example, I managed a simple one to explain is I've managed a email marketing product for the last year or so. So my main focus is to understand everything about the customer that we're building it for. At the time, it was e-commerce mainly. So understanding everything about e-commerce marketing managers, what they use email marketing for, and then you look at the competitor landscape and you try and understand, okay, what are they using now to solve their current problems? Um, Industry trends, generative AI, these types of things. You have to know, and you have to be the expert at that, and you have to run discovery. Discovery is something that definitely product owners and project managers don't do. And that's the sole focus of product manager. And that's really just speaking with customers, understanding all this data that I just mentioned,
Hmm.
distilling it down to groups of problems and opportunities to solve, and then boiling them down to testable hypotheses that you can create some tests for. And then once you get all the data you need to know, hey, is this the most important thing that our team can solve right now?
Oh
That's
yeah.
essentially my job. It's the what. There's
Hmm.
people who will contest that and all the nitpicky stuff, but I'm just trying to keep it simple here.
Yeah.
Is that product managers really focus on the what? It's
Oh
our
yeah, like
responsibility.
I have no idea what it is, so be simple. That's way easier for me to understand. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it changes in every company, by the way. So
right,
that I
yeah.
think it's super flexible. The concept has been thrown around. You can disagree with it, like in product, it depends, but you could just say it's like the CEO of the product.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so if you think the CEO of a company, what are they? Are they engineers? Maybe they are, but they also manage recruiting. They also manage tons of different stuff, the
Yeah.
technology, any problems. They're kind of they wear many hats, and
Hmm.
a product manager definitely does. So my day to day, a product manager could be checking all the metrics in like amplitude. It could be these SQL dashboards, pulling in users, people who have clicked certain pages, the funnels that they go through, trying to understand opportunities where they get stuck in the flow to reach the aha moment to get them the value.
Oh yeah.
talking to those customers to understand why they might be getting stuck at different points, then looking at different industry reports to see like what our upcoming trends are. So I'm aggregating all that data, and I'm hopefully in good companies working with my tech lead or engineering manager and my designer. And we're really there to try and aggregate all the problems people are facing. And
What does
we're looking
aggregate mean?
just adding all together. So you're
Okay,
really
yeah.
looking holistically, and it's a super,
So it's a
I find
big
it,
zoom out kind of version of what the
yeah,
business is and how to get the team doing stuff for the customers, doing the right stuff.
exactly right. So um, if you think like, what's the point? So some companies and teams, old school teams in particular, might think, what's the point of a product manager if, or project manager, any of these other varieties or flavors, if there's an engineer to build it and there's a designer to design it, right?
Yeah.
The biggest problem is, and one of the reasons why I don't like project manager or product owner is that the way it's historically been done in traditional companies, and not the best companies either. And we can talk about what the best companies are and what that means, is that stakeholders, meaning leadership, CEO, CPO, managers and managers, they tend to dictate everything that gets built. So they might say, hey, we need to build a brand new platform. We need to scale this. We need to just, and it just basically comes from the top of their mind. Or maybe they talk to a few other, some customers, maybe they've just talked to a few
Investors or
people.
whatever.
Yeah, investors is a huge part of it. And they just say, hey, we need to build an email marketing platform, for example. We just have to do it because that's the way we need to go. And then
Yeah.
that just gets distilled to a team. It's like, hey, you need to go build it. And when can you do it? That's like the biggest thing.
Hmm.
And that's really what project managers do. Although it's super common to hire product managers, but really they're doing project management work. So to go over the differences again, a true product manager should be doing discovery work. And that is like talking to customers, looking at data, aggregating, adding up all of these problems together, focusing which problems that they can solve that can move a metric that is positive for the business. And
Hmm.
that's usually like a leading metric, like let's just say like daily active users, which is super common for Facebook, for example. They knew
Right.
if they increased daily active users, they might get more revenue from advertisers because there's more eyeballs on the screen. So like it all
Oh
filters
yeah.
down to a metric that needs to be pulled in a certain direction. And product managers look at things in that space. So you might say, here's the metric I need to increase or decrease for the business in order to generate revenue. Okay, so there's your shell.
Hmm.
Inside that, you have to see what drives that metric. What drives daily active users for Facebook, for example? Could be liking and sharing, adding photos, joining groups, memberships. You understand what all the levers are.
Yeah.
And then you start to interview different customers or users who are in those little pockets of the product, understand what challenges they're facing, what they want, what their day-to-day looks like, what jobs they have to do. And then you can just boil that down to a list of problems that they may have, and those problems can be testable. And then you with your team can just run tests. They don't even have to be technical tests. They can just be, hey, I think there's an opportunity here to add a photo editing option within a Facebook photo. Is there a way that we can just run a prototype in Figma for that and test it on a group of users and see whether this is something they would like? And you're
Oh
basically
yeah.
just testing hypotheses. And then hopefully you can really boil down all of this, take away all the risks, technical, feasibility, business risk, all that kind of stuff. And you can say, hey, this is a high integrity high integrity roadmap essentially of items that we think we essentially know at that point that we need to build this because this is likely going to move a metric. And only then is when you can actually start writing code. And I think that's what good
Okay, yeah.
is because
So yeah, because so many people that are working with developers, I obviously talk to a good few developers, and it's so annoying. You see all the memes as well, and it's like some guy in an office who is, swinging a baseball bat, like, yeah, so we promised the stakeholders that we're gonna have blah 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 thing.
yeah.
So make it by tomorrow, and it's impossible, and there's no clear business need for it other than, let's say, some guy just said he wanted it. And
Yeah, it's so
you're there to
common.
kind of filter out those things that are coming down from the board, let's say, or the the CEO and things that aren't necessarily going to move the needle, and then giving it to the devs so they're not thinking like this is impossible, like this cannot be done. Because like, what's your
Yeah.
interaction with developers?
Day to day, like hand in hand,
Right.
quite close relationship. Now, I can't code, no intentions of really coding.
Yeah,
But I feel like I understand the technology that powers whatever product that I'm managing.
yeah,
Um, Understanding that, going through the architecture at a very high level, understanding where risks are, where we're limited, that kind of stuff. It's just studying
yeah.
that. I won't know it from heart, by heart, but after a while, I'd end up understanding like where we might get caught or
Mm.
what might take longer than to build than anyone without experience might assume.
And do you
So
think like if sorry to cut you off there, but if
yeah,
somebody, because a lot of people that's listening to this are going to be learning to code or at the early stages, or they want to get into tech. A lot of times it's just they want to get into tech.
yeah.
And I was in that situation, and I was thinking, "Oh, I was learning to code, and you know when you hit a roadblock and you're thinking this is impossible. Is there a way to go from not knowing anything in tech to maybe trying your hand at code or UX design or something like that, and then getting into the role that you got to? Like, how would that happen,
Yeah,
or can it
like
happen?
I'm like super biased because obviously I've worked in product management, so I'm going to say things that like are going to lean towards it, even though it's a pretty chaotic job,
Hmm.
and some people don't like product managers because they don't behave the right way. They act like kind of like dictators, just tell people to do in bad companies especially. But essentially, I think I would recommend anybody here listening that or to just learn about product management in general because if especially if you're like a freelancer or you move between jobs or and you're just kind of if you're working in those companies that things just kind of get thrown over the wall and you have to build it and you kind of get stuck and then you realize I don't even know kind of why I'm doing this or like what am I'm just told to build this thing, so it kind of limits creativity. So if you know about product management and you understand what questions to ask in those situations, it's super powerful because that can unblock you in these moments.
Mm.
So if you're able to if you work in a company or if you're doing some sort of project for somebody, truly understanding the why. Like I always like the concept of ask the five whys to get to the core truth of something. So keep asking why, like why are we doing this? What problem are we solving is a great question to ask. And if you start to understand that and you get involved as a developer in a project early or in with a customer or the end user or something like that early in the process when they're just discovering things, it's a superpower because later down the road you have all these tools like a treasure chest of tools and insights to help you navigate the solution space. And to clarify, when I talk about product discovery and the interviews and looking at the data, that's the discovery space, the problem space. You're just trying to define a problem and then you
Mm.
move to the solution space and you kind of alternate between them until you get the right solution and you're de-risking along the way. So if you're a developer and you're just getting things thrown over the wall, or if you're a freelancer and you're just taking jobs, if you just say, sweet, I'm just going to grab that and I'm going to run with it because I think I'm confident in that coding language or something like that, you
Yeah.
may just sprint and you hit a roadblock and you're like, I have no idea how to get there. And I
Mm.
believe that you can solve a lot of those problems just by taking your time to understand the purpose, like how did you get to this task, like and the layers above that. Once you have all that context, you can just pull in different tools along the way when you get stuck. But I think that is great. So if sorry, I think that's very useful. And then I think if you just want to get started in this type of thinking, it's more about just thinking like an entrepreneur. And that's
Mm.
basically just understanding problems in different markets. But I mean, like markets is like groups of people who have a particular need or problem, understanding what makes them tick, what's their day-to-day look like, when did they run into that problem,
Mm.
defining it. And then is there a way that you can brainstorm solutions around that problem in a very focused way? And then just say, hey, maybe this solution might work and it's pretty risk-free. Is there any way we can spin up a landing page, for example, to test if people would click on this button and sign up or
Yeah,
buy,
yeah.
for example? like the very, very low cost, easy way to create a hypothesis and validate.
It's
And
all about
whether
kind of keeping costs and risks low, I guess. And the
that's
risk
your
is that
job,
you're going to
basically.
waste a load of time developing stuff that has no application for customers ultimately.
Exactly. And that's why I think product management, if people don't understand the value of product management, or devs don't, or even stakeholders, leaderships in businesses, they have the wrong idea of what they do. Because if you think a product manager is a project manager or product owner, which basically you're just reorganizing the backlog in a scrum role, that's what product owner is. Project manager just drives projects. Now, there's value for those roles for sure, but if you think that that's a replacement for product manager, you're missing the value of it because you're really measured in those two other roles. You're measured on output, not outcomes.
Oh yeah, it
So
should be, yeah, yeah. It should be about,
exactly.
yeah, because it's an increment of value, isn't that what they call it? The
Yeah, so like
sprint. So that's like
Agile and
making, yeah.
Scrum and all of this is great and it works really well for delivery, but no one seems to talk about what happens before delivery. It's just like
Mm,
everyone wants to become an expert in delivery. And I've worked with teams too, and they look at all the story points that they committed and then all the story points they delivered and the gap between them and the burn down charts in Jira and these types of things. Useful, super useful, but it means absolutely nothing if it doesn't move the metric or
yeah.
customer problem. And that is like a real lever
Crazy, isn't it?
for any devs getting into tech now. Because if you just focus on the things that you learn through your bubble of developer and all the learnings that you learn how in coding and stuff like that, you're really limiting yourself because I truly believe that you have to make money for a business to be truly valued.
Yeah.
And figure out ways to help the business make more money or solve more customer problems. And you'll be truly valued. You get paid more. You move up the company, or in the case of freelancers, you may be hired once again to do it. So thinking like that, I think it just increases your net worth
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah, solid because that we don't think about that, do we? Like if you're doing um development freelance like I did, you're at the start you're kind of thinking, I just need to get this done because the client said so. I'm going to
Yeah,
get this done. But as I grew into it, I noticed that the client might want a certain thing in a particular way. And I would suggest, and I'm thinking, we could do this way better. What's the point of this page? And then
yeah,
they might say, "Oh, we need to have it because we have to have it." Okay, so there's an EU directive that says you have to have a privacy policy page. Okay, fine. You know, I'll do that. But if it's something to do with filling out a form or whatever, how can we do this differently? Like you worked with Typeform,
yeah,
and like even that business is such a mad specific niche, but I see it everywhere now
yeah,
that people
yeah.
are using it
It's
because it's
across
just
so many.
it's a
Yeah,
better solution than the average form on a website. So yeah, just giving a bit of pushback, even if you are a freelancer, that you can think of the business needs and challenge some of the work that's coming to you to make yourself more valuable, to also make the thing that you're working on mean more. So it's a good point of view, actually. I never really thought about it in that
So
clear
if you
way.
think of it like that, right? If you're a freelancer, and I'm talking about like discovery, right? So discovery, like I said, is just like looking at all the data, understanding, talking to customers, and people who may hire you as a freelancer, uh, you kind of assume they've done all that work. Sometimes they don't. They just make
Yeah.
decisions and they say they push through all of that because it takes time. It takes a lot of deep thinking, and people can just say, we just need this thing done, you know? And then they hire the freelancer to do it. And they may not have thought about that very deeply. Some things are like trivial, you know, they're just like, I just need this thing done. It's a simple task, fine. But if you're hired for like a project, I think if you as a freelancer just approach it as in like this is the solution I need to build, I think it's you're only delivering half the value that you could really deliver to that client.
Mm,
You're actually kind of pigeonholing yourself as well. So I'd recommend at least trying with the person that's hiring you to just open up with like a discovery call first. I would call it a discovery call, discovery conversation. Just be like, sweet, you need me to build this thing. No worries. Like, let me just understand the context a little bit. Like, who are we building this for? Why are we building it? Were there other solutions explored? And how are you measuring success? I think is super interesting.
Yeah.
So how is the client measuring success? Okay, so if I deliver this output, what outcome do you expect from that? And they might just say, I just need to move this metric X, Y, and Z. You get all this context, and you're like, we could do this in half the time.
Yeah.
And you might think, oh, I'm paid per hour. Why would I do that? It's like, no, but yeah, if you do this, your value goes way up, and then you can
Yeah.
charge next time because that next bigger project could be done half the time too, which increases their value and just goes around and around and it pays off. It's more longer term.
Yeah.
If you're just a task manager where things get thrown over the wall and you think that your time is worth this X amount of tasks, I don't agree with that personally. I think it's just like you should be just extracting as much value as possible because then your net worth goes up.
Yeah, because it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, I'm on hourly, so I don't care. I'm gonna take up as much time as possible to,
Yeah,
to line my pockets. But actually, if you're working with a business and you provide extra value, you can then make the argument that, oh, I'd like more per hour.
yeah,
And then that's better for everybody because you get to work less and it's more interesting.
exactly.
And then
And
the
then,
client gets the thing faster, so you're going to get ultimately more work with them. Because if they're working with 10 freelancers, which is not uncommon,
yeah,
they're probably thinking, well, Danny was the best of those because he moved this metric. And Dean is part of the company and he's saying, yeah, let's get with that guy again because he added a lot more value. And you end up with more work and more referrals to better work. So yeah,
it looks like you
thinking
care
kind of
too.
broad. Yeah, yeah. And
Exactly. It
that's
looks like you
really what they
you
care about,
push,
isn't it?
yeah. And that
Yeah.
matters to people too. It like don't forget that. It's like you could just be a robot on the other side where task you could be like Devin, that new AI, a robot, and you could just be like doing tasks with no soul, no human, like you don't care. And
Yeah. I feel
look,
like
I've
that's sometimes
taken that,
what's wanted as well.
yeah, I've
Sometimes
taken
they
that to my
just want
personal life.
code
I've taken
monkey.
it to my yeah, I've taken it to my personal life with things like that too. It's like run run discovery calls, discovery conversations with people in your relationships, things that are going on. Like if a project in your house that you want to do, take your time with it. And because I have a tendency of rushing things. Like most people, you just jump to a solution of something and then you just execute
Mm,
with it, like sort of planning or research. I'm like,
yeah.
no worries, we got this. And then I just hit a roadblock and I'm like, well, I probably made about 7 mistakes along the way with all these assumptions that I never tested.
Mm.
And now I don't know which one, where do I start because I made all these assumptions along the way
Oh yeah.
and I'm stuck and I'm screwed and I've already burned through money, time, and you don't look very good in that sense. So
Oh yeah.
it's
Such a cla
pain.
such a classic one. Like when I went traveling, um, and I had 20 kilos worth of stuff. So everything I had was 20 kilos.
Yeah.
And I am not a minimalist. I understand that that was a big movement for ages, and everyone's like, I'm a minimalist. I've only got 89 items. Like, whatever. Congratulations. No one cares. And it doesn't bring you more peace of mind because you're thinking, I'm wearing the same thing every day. Anyway, regardless, because I had so few items of clothing, they wear out real fast.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, well, all my clothes are worn out. I need to replace these. So I had in my head, I need new clothes. And if you don't think about it and you just go and you buy everything online, one go, boop, you end
Yeah.
up with loads of rubbish. And you've got all this stuff. Now you've got way more stuff to replace all the stuff that you had, but you don't like it. You look awful, you're uncomfortable, and you've wasted loads of money and time. Whereas if you just spend time thinking, okay, well, what outcome do I want? Well, I want to look good and replace my clothes. And then you kind of think, it's such a stupid example, but I'm sure everybody's been in this situation where you just bought a load of nonsense that you didn't need and
Yeah.
you've wasted time and you've got loads of stuff that you hate. So that was just one that I'm kind of going through that now because all my clothes are all worn out. So I'm trying to like, well, probably over planning it, but it's just a little example of a stupid project that even that you could kind of think as a product project manager, product manager.
Product. No, I'm joking. It's not like sensitive about this at all. Yeah, it's true. And like, look, I make this mistake all the time still. Like, I always tend to think of the happy path about something. Like, there's a
Oh yeah.
problem. That's sweet. We'll just go do this, and then we go do that solution. And there was never like, yeah, but what if that didn't work out? What if this and
Hmm.
that? And then I'm just like, didn't think of that. And now we're in this
Yeah.
situation where I didn't plan it properly. So I think the greatest thing that you can have on any of these, like in a professional setting, but even a personal, if you have a project, is time. Like the more time, the better. Like if you're a freelancer and you're taking urgent projects that need to be done tomorrow, yeah, we all need to do that. We all need to grind sometimes and just take those projects when we need them. But ideally, more time, the better to do this like discovery and kind of planning and understanding, because the more time you get with that, the calmer you'll be, the more time you can do that deep thinking, that deep empathy, that deep understanding. And then all the tools are then spread out, and you're like, oh, sweet, I can just pick, oh, I can test this. And then you'll kind of calmly get your way to the solution. And then you
Yeah.
just repeat. But you just have to make sure if you're trying to do things in like double the time. Let's just say you have a fixed, if you're a freelancer and you get a fixed fee, you get €200 for one project. You're like, sweet, I can cut these corners right now. Pretty sure it'll work out, and I can get that done in half the time and rinse it. You could end up getting through all these assumptions that you've made along the way, and then you end up completely stuck. And then you're like, oh shit, I completely screwed this up. And now I'm stressed. And like, this is my life now. This is my job.
Yeah.
This is my career. I've just this approach, and it's not nice. And I've done it in my job too, where I'm like, might get one piece of data, and I'm like, sweet, that's exactly how the customer thinks. This is what the data says. Like, I'm just kind of biasing myself with all these like just momentum. I'm like, I know it all. And I've done it as well, where I've actually gone through all that, rushed the discovery process, committed an item, got my team to work on it, released it, didn't move a metric. And I'm sitting there being like, shit,
Mm.
and what went wrong? You don't know. If you can't get the customer on the phone, the metric hasn't moved. You've just wasted a quarter's worth of work for a team that costs thousands.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the team costs a lot as well. You can't
It
just
costs us,
waste.
it's the most expensive team. So that's why your
Yeah.
job is to risk that. And that's how your value goes up as a product manager.
Yeah, solid. And just if you could summarize real quick how to get into that role if you're like a complete beginner.
So um there is a lot more ways to get in now than when I started. It wasn't even that long ago. But first of all, it's not as simple as like a course. Courses are available now, and they're good, and they're expensive, but if you want to take them, go for it. It's cool. Like there's a lot of theory that needs to be learned, but you can't just do it like you could learn code. I think it's very different. You need to be super agile and have experience across various different things. I think the best way to do that is probably two things. If you're in a tech company already, the approach that I did, I think would work. So I was in customer support, and I was in the company Zendesk at the time, and had multiple products like Zendesk Talk for phone calls between customer support agents and end users. And another one is live chat, the typical chatbot chat widgets that you see on a website. I really like chat, so I was in customer support taking all these calls, and I became a product champion in customer support for that. Basically, anyone who didn't understand a customer problem about chat, they came to me. I helped them troubleshoot, and I was like, I need to double down on this because I want to be a product manager on that team, because I
Okay.
don't know, I felt like it was kind of, it worked for me. So I read all the documentation. I talked to all the product managers, the engineers, understood everything as deeply as I could. I felt like I knew the answer to everything. A customer calls me, they ask me about anything about Zendesk Chat, boom, I felt like I could do it. And then I was like, okay, where's the product team? The product team, I was in Dublin at the time, the product team was in Singapore. So I just started applying for jobs that I knew I couldn't get in Singapore. So I was like a senior product manager role, which is like, it's really hard. It would be really hard for me now to even get at that level.
Yeah.
And they had to interview me because it was internal. So like
Oh,
I had to,
really? Yeah.
yeah. So it was kind of like
Ah,
this tongue-in-cheek interview where they like we all knew I wasn't gonna get it, but they had to still do the interview. And I think they liked that I kind of just had the balls to do it, I guess.
took the risk. Yeah.
And they said no, but like, thanks for your interest. Like, sweet. I'm in their heads. I'm raising my hand if they ever need somebody. And then a year later, they called back for this role, which was product solutions manager, which I haven't actually seen in any other company, but it's kind of like you're on the product team um for Zendesk chat where there's like four different product managers and four different teams, and you're the one kind of aggregating all the go-to-market, like understanding what each team is doing, and you're working with product marketing to kind of get all those new products that they built to market, and you're also in between with the teams. So you're still on the product team. And I was like, yeah, sweet. Like, give me that. Interviewed for it, and they transferred me over. And then from there, I was like, great. Now that I'm here, I want to be a product manager. How long until I'm a product manager? And then I was just kind of nitpicking and trying to get in as
Right.
much as possible. Took on different projects that were really small, and eventually I got the promotion. So that's one way of doing it.
It was all internal, basically, initially. You went from customer support. So you're thinking if somebody wanted to do it, they could just get in the door doing something. Customer support and sales are kind of ways to get into a lot of these companies,
Yeah,
isn't it?
great ways to
And
get in.
then you can
You can come from
probably
any sector of the business. You can be a part.
tactically angle yourself to move up into a specific role. And what was the other way you were going to say?
So if you're completely outside of it now, I'd recommend just starting some sort of side hustle, um, and documenting it from start to
Ah,
finish.
okay, like a little mini business.
Yeah, it could be a newsletter, and you don't even have to make money from it. It's just that like if you can do it and document, let's just say you want to, yeah, you want to create a newsletter. And you want to create a newsletter on football. You really like football, and you want to kind of create a newsletter where it aggregates all of the results. I keep saying aggregate. I know it's
That's
like
your favorite word, yeah.
my favorite. I love that word.
I'm
It kind of
glad you
brings together
defined it
all the
at the
results.
start.
Yeah, I know, right? It brings together like a newsletter that brings together all the results of the Premier League once a week, for example, of the top 10, something like that, some niche fun thing that you would read yourself. And you want to start it, maybe you get on Twitter and you're trying to just post loads of content. You're trying to understand the metrics to see if people click on it. Do they actually click on your blog? Do you collect a lot of leads, which are essentially people who are subscribers? Does that grow? Which type of article works the best? Which doesn't? How have you tweaked that? Anything that you're seeing in these changes, or even an Instagram page can work like this too. And you document it via like a blog, at least so you have a track record of every decision that you made, the insights that you learned. You have all that there, and then
Mm.
you can keep tweaking based off the data, which is what product managers do. And if you actually grow something, like you grew your Instagram page to 1,000 followers based off some of these tactics, based off insights that you've discovered along the way, interacting with people who comment on your photos or videos, looking at the analytics, and then making increments based off that, testing hypotheses. Document all that on like medium.com or Substack. And that's your once you keep tweaking and you get success based off all the feedback, you have grounds to argue you could do product
Yeah.
management.
It's like building in public in a way,
Yeah, and all
that
that's
whole
free.
movement. So you
That's
can
free.
just do it at the start and that'll catch attention, I suppose, to get into those roles. It's a good idea,
Yeah,
yeah. And I
exactly.
think
So
that's helpful for anybody that's even doing coding. If you're just learning, you could document like your learning process. And
yeah,
another, just I think this meeting's going to run out, but we can run into a new one either. Um, but with regards to kind of AI in the developer space, let's say,
yeah.
when you were working uh, in that role and you're dealing with developers, did you think to yourself, or what do you think is the likelihood of some of them getting replaced with AI, or do you think the developers, it'll be on them? Well, what do you think?
No, like I see it. Like I'm following it so much. More so because I'm just fascinated by it, but I don't see it coming into to day-to-day lives just yet. And I don't even know if some of the engineers I've worked with are actually aware about it or care about it. It's kind of like a niche thing that it's like it's AI that could influence engineering, but it's not like an engineering topic that they care about very much, is what my experience is. Um, I've seen all the stuff like with GitHub, with Devin, all that kind of stuff, Copilot. that looks super useful, but I feel like it has to be a bit more integrated into your code base or your architecture to really probably get the value out of it. It feels like, unless you just need it for like quick tasks to help you clean up some code.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anybody use it. So I don't know if
Mm.
it's all hype.
Well, it's
Or what,
definitely hype. There's no doubt that it's
it's
hype.
hype anyway, but is it all hype? Is
Yeah,
a
yeah,
separate question. I think
yeah.
it's more down the road type of thing. Plus, I worked for Tidio for email marketing. They have their own AI tool, like AI chatbot that plugs into your help centers and like very much AI driven company. And as far as I know, I don't think that they've integrated into their code base, or I've heard any
Right.
other team be like, "Hey, we've full on access to OpenAI APIs, and we're just bringing it all into our code base, and everything is used to help write code, clean up code, or anything like that." So
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I,
The
I, I
is not there just yet.
I would have thought that a lot of these, because I remember in the freelance world, they're all like, oh yeah, we're
Mm.
gonna take in these, we're gonna use AI, get it done as quick as possible. But then you could just end up with a mess.
Yeah,
Like even the low code or no code solutions, a lot of them end up in a big mess, and they need a, do you know what's that called? Bubble.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I see loads of
You get
jobs
too
like, oh, we
smart.
need a bubble engineer, and everyone's like, nobody is a bubble engineer. Good luck, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
I think this is gonna end. Let's open a new one. What do you think?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Still have time, yeah. Let's talk about exploring your own thing. So, uh, you are also a producer of music, and you make content around that, and you make music basically. So, do you have I wonder what's the best way. Can we even play some of your stuff? Send on some of your stuff and I'll use it maybe for the intro or the outro and we can give people a listen. But yeah, do you want to just talk about running your own, I suppose, doing your own thing? How did that feel like starting your own thing?
Yeah, I think with Zoom it's a bit tricky to kind of get the audio to play from the same one,
Yeah,
but we can try if we need to. If not, we can use it for an intro or outro.
future.
Yeah, yeah. Like I mean, I think it started when I was probably about 16. I think I was, which is a while ago now, and I just became fascinated about like how things work. So I found this. I was listening to some music, like I can't remember what it was, but then I heard I was trying to understand how certain pieces of the music could get made, and then I kind of was like Googling it, and I found this thing called FL Studio, and I was like, what is this? And I downloaded it and I realized that you could actually make music on this program yourself and like with drum sounds, synth sounds, bass lines. And I was just like, this is insane. Like I feel like I've kind of peeked behind the door
Mm.
of what drives all the songs that I love. And at the time I was just obsessed with like electronic music, dance, trance, house, techno, that kind of stuff. And I still am. So once I learned a bit about the program FL Studio, I just went down the rabbit hole and just spent hours and hours and hours.
How did you start learning it? Like, what was your process for learning something? Because that's kind of what I really care about is kind of how do you learn things? Like,
Yeah, yeah, me,
you're self-taught.
yeah, everything was self-taught, and like I would never read about it or anything like that. It was all done through YouTube videos,
Oh yeah.
at the start, and then I found this this site called Sonic Academy, which actually is still around now, and at the time, it was just a bunch of lads from Northern Ireland who created like a SaaS company for like tutorials. So like it would be like how to create pop music, how to create house and techno. And you just take those courses and it was like €10 a month. And I just like all I watched was those and I would just replicate it. And you could take the course and they would give you the individual sounds. So you could like take the exact sounds and follow them along, learn the software. And that's how I learned all the software. And then I, what was the first song? I think I took a sample from the Michael song. I think it was called Amazing. Do you know that song?
No, but
I
that's
think
funny.
it's amazing. I think you're something like that. I think at the very start there's these chords that get played, and it's very dusty, very old kind of sound. And I just took that, and before the beat starts or before he starts singing, you'd actually I can't remember the name of the song. I think it's amazing. It's the song. And I just chopped it up and kind of turned it into like a deep house song with a bass line. And it got signed to a label, and all the parts got chopped up, and a load of different artists
No way.
remixed it, and it was part of an EP. And that was years ago. Like if you look on Spotify now, it's still there from like
No
2011.
way. I will put the link to that definitely
Yeah,
in the notes.
it's interesting because if you know George Michael and that, you might be able to hear the sample in it, but we got it cleared at the time, or I don't think they even checked, to be totally honest, wherever the record label was for like copyright infringement. And then from there, I just went down the rabbit hole of making remixes. So I made remixes of old disco songs. I made a remix of Madison Avenue, Don't Call Me Baby, which
Oh
was
yeah.
just taking the a cappella of it and putting on some sort of rhythm or beat that I had. And yeah, just got super excited about that. I was really into like the deep house and techno scene back in like 2011, 2012. And then I worked with my mates to create a band called The Villa, where I went down like hip hop, dance, trance kind of path for a while we were together, and we did a couple of shows. We moved to Ibiza together to try and like focus on the music, and obviously we just partied instead of actually making music, which is fun. Actually, it was interesting because like recently we released the album of like all the songs that we made like 6, 7, 8 years ago, which is just like a trip for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. So I love it now because I'm trying to make like a little studio here that I'm kind of piecing together over time, and I'm just trying to get to that perfect idea of what I think a studio might be. But I actually find a lot of a relationship between that and like product management as well, because like in the role itself, it's quite a creative role because you're the one with the most context on the restraints of constraints of the business and the constraints of the customers, the use cases, that kind of stuff. You see what's happening in the market, and you come up with certain ideas that feels like you're doing something creative. It's not like you're a designer designing art in that sense.
Hmm.
It's more so like spotting opportunities. Because in music, that's exactly what you might do. Like that song I told you about, the George Michael sample. Like when you're doing it for that long, you just spot these things. And you're just like, oh, that's a sample. What if? And you just run through the process. Oh, I could
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
I could add a beat, and then the bass line could sound like this, and it's just like happens like that. And I kind of what try and do and try and add that flavor to product management too. So I could learn about the customer, I could understand this, and it could just all piece together. It could be nothing, and then I have it, and I have to get like a Miro board or some sort of whiteboard and just add it all together. And then I might just be like, this is the strategy. This is the strategy we're going to do for the next month. We need to test this straight away. So the deeper I go into uh, music production, I think that I get better at my job because you realize as well the details matter. Like
Mm.
for example, before this chat, I'm sitting here with like this big song where like a big kick where it's like boom, 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 and a bass line that's like in between that. And I'm listening to it on the headphones on repeat over and over and over and tweaking like the tiniest details to see how it
Mm.
sounds on the speakers or the headphones or on my phone, and adding little bits of flavor on top of it like that. And I think and this is where it goes back to like having enough time for these types of things, because it's definitely one thing you cannot rush. It's the same in product management. If you have enough time to go into those details and do a lot of deep thinking, I think that's when you create some of your best work across the spectrum. So the more time, the better. And one thing I noticed is that like creativity and business doesn't mesh, and that's the only thing where it's mutually exclusive
Really,
between
yeah.
product management and creativity. And this is something that like Rick Rubin talks about a lot and like podcasts and his books and stuff like that. I think I know you've read the Rick Rubin
I
book.
started it, yeah. It's a very
Or-
sleepy book if you're listening to
Yeah,
it.
I never actually read
I
it, but
should
I've
have
listened
got
to
the physical one to read it, but yeah, anyway, yeah, I'll get into it. I li did listen to his podcasts and stuff like that. A lot of the same
it. Depends.
topics.
It resonated with me because I really thought I could think I can take music and I can apply it to product management, but I can't take product management and apply it to music.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
one way compatible. Because the way you might do it in product management is you the business might assign a problem to you, right? They might say, hey, we need to fix activation rate at the top of the funnel. And the metric you need to move is activation rate. You need to increase it by 5%. You're like, sweet. Like I said before, what drives activation rate? What are all the levers that
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
be
yeah.
pulled? Great. And you can kind of distill it from that and you can interview customers and you can have that really focused approach. But if you try and do the opposite, if you try and do that in music and you say, hey, what is number one on Spotify right now? Let's take all of the top 10 and see what makes them tick. You know, is it a pop song? Is it a rap song? Do they have this kind of effect on their vocals? What is the kick or the bass line or the synths? What are they doing? And you could do a report on that, right? And you could just say, you know what? This is the bass line that I think works in all of them. This is the kick. This is the snare drum. This is the hi-hats. And you say, well, it makes sense if we can recreate this right now. And you can say, I really want to make a pop dance reggaeton song that's going to be number one, and recreate that. But what you'll find is that like art doesn't work that way. That's what Rick Rubin says. Like that's not art. That's commerce. Like, and there's a
Yeah,
time and a place for that. But if you're trying to like express yourself, I'm sitting there working on a reggaeton song that I don't like, but I'm doing it because I think it's going to do well in a chart or a label is going to sign it to me. And I'm sitting there being like, I'm not good at reggaeton because I don't like reggaeton and I had no idea what to do next. And now I'm starting to feel pretty bad about myself and my creativity
yeah,
and my abilities. So it doesn't work that way. So what, and I did it before too, where I was like, I need to find my sound. I need to find a signature sound that sounds like the way I produce it, because other artists do that.
yeah.
And then I might find something I'm like, great, now all my songs have to sound like that. And then you just like, well, every song now sounds the same.
Exact
And I
same,
really
yeah.
want to go over, yeah, I really want to go and make this hip hop song that I'm kind of working on. But over here, I said I commit to my sound for house music, and you're just pigeonholing yourself because you made this rule, and it doesn't work that way. But you can do it
Yeah.
for product management. You can
But
just be like, I need to focus on activation rate.
yeah,
You
but
know?
it's even true for like what I'm doing with making content. You can say that I only do coding content or I only do whatever. You can you can pick a niche and it's too specific that you just get bored. Like if I was only doing coding videos, I would have stopped making videos ages ago. But
Yeah,
the fact that I like to do, and I think when you're doing something for yourself, you have to just keep going with it. If you pigeonhole yourself, like I say this all the time. I see like there's a channel on YouTube, and I remember I was trying to make money online at the start,
mm,
and it was about how to sell things on Etsy. And I
yeah,
subscribed ages ago. We're talking years ago, and I still see videos come up, and it's how to do this on Etsy, and I'm like, this guy's still doing it like 5 years later, the same videos on Etsy. I'm like, how can you get out of bed to do that?
yeah.
So there's that side of things also, but if you do copy something that's successful, you can become successful as well.
Maybe it's the type of person who can
Yeah,
just do it without getting emotional about it. Like I can't. I think the reason why I can do product management and work on various different metrics and problems. Like I've tried to like stop churn for Typeform and then I've worked on email marketing for Tidio. And the reason why I can change that is because I love the craft of product management. I think it's like
yeah,
something beautiful about it. I don't know why. It sounds very romantic, but I just love it. And I can apply that to different areas. But if I was like you, making content on YouTube, for example, and like trying to set up the camera and the microphone and then editing all that and then the script, for me, that's like super overwhelming. Like you may love all of that, but if you think of me sitting there with those headphones and listening to the same loop of music over and over, just trying to tweak something that
oh
no
man,
one would notice,
that's crazy.
you might be like, this is shit. Like this is so
That's
horrible. My
crazy.
wife is like that too. She's like, you're just listening to the same thing over and over. And I'm like hitting the space bar to stop and
Ah,
start the loop. And
ah,
it's like, boom, 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 no, wrong. Boom, did it
oh
again.
my God.
And I just tweak it slightly, slightly, slightly. And it's just like, just stop, please stop. I was like, no, like this is, I could go here all day, you know? And that's where it does sound cheesy. Like do what you love and stuff like that. And you can't just decide I'm going to run a business and I'm only going to work 4 hours a day and I'm going to wake up whenever I want and
Yeah.
because it's what you love. It's different than that. It's like the longer term side of things. Like I think about that. Like I maybe want to start a business one day. I've had that dream for ages, but then there's some ideas I get, and again, it's a bit more like, hey, there's a problem here. I think you and I talked about like the onboarding problem before for like
Hmm.
new companies, right? And I see that as a big problem. Somebody might start a company and it's just spreadsheets here and there. They're like, here, learn this, and then no one knows what they're doing. They don't know if they have any progress on their onboarding into a new company. But if I wanted to start a business to solve that problem, create a product with all these ideas, great. You can then visualize like it doing well, people using it, all the exciting stuff. But then you're like, hey, in 2 years' time, I wake up and I'm focusing on onboarding again and making sure the I don't know that people complete a checklist using my product or something like that. Will I get excited about waking up? You know, when the adrenaline has kind of worn away and this is just your
Yeah.
day today. Is that the stuff that is just like exciting to get up to? And I've started so many things before and just quit because I've focused on the wrong thing. Where I think like I'd want the outcome rather than I want the process.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's, I think most of us, isn't it? When you start something new, you want
So annoying. And then you
the
feel guilty
outcome.
for not being consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the thing I found with sports and exercise, because if I just want this body or this physique, you
Mm,
might, you're really enthusiastic at the start when you want to go from looking like a pillowcase to looking like a cheese grater. But you're like halfway there on a rainy morning. Are you going to go when you're tired and you're sore and you're just because you want to look different? No, a lot of people won't go. Um,
yeah,
Whereas if you were into bouldering, rock climbing,
yeah, yeah.
something like that, you would get fit. And you look at the guys in there and they're in great shape
Mm,
and they're flexible, they're agile, they're explosive, low body fat percentage, because all of
mm,
that stuff is a byproduct of the process of doing the actual climbing. And the climbing is the enjoyable part. Same thing with jujitsu. Um, so it's like with coding, if you love learning things, if you're learning to code and you're hating it, then you're not going to like it because
yeah,
that's what it is. You're learning all the time. You're solving problems. I'd say with music, if you find it really tedious going back and
yeah,
forth, listening to the same thing over and over because you're trying to get to an outcome, which is to be a top selling artist or whatever, you don't actually
exactly.
like doing the thing. So stop doing it or do something else.
I think you summarized it really well there in a way that I never thought about it, but I think it's so simple. If you kind of like approach something where the byproduct is the outcome that is really good for your life, you know, like whether that's
Yeah,
financial or something like that, then you're in a good space. Like you said, the byproduct of bouldering might be just a great body, a great strong body, but that's a great benefit on top of the thing that I
massive.
liked
Yeah.
harder in a career, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
like if you try and do that in a career, but you'll end up just uh fading and
Yeah. That's it.
evolving.
That's what I found with the coding because I don't mind it. I actually don't mind it. I can code for the day and I'm interested and I get stuff at the end and I feel like the way I describe it is imagine you have a hedge in your garden, like a big
Mm,
bush that you want to trim. So that's like the project you get. And then you're thinking, oh, what tools will I use? How will I overcome this tree in the middle? How will I structure this whole thing? And then at the end of the day, all the work is done and you have this perfect hedge that's done. That's nice at the end of coding when you
yeah,
see, oh, it's done. It got committed. It's now part of the website and I made that and I know how it was built and I know all the problems that were solved to get
yeah.
there. So that is motivating. That is part of coding that I really liked. But what I do more of now is teaching and training and stuff like that. And that gives me energy
Yeah,
when
that's
I'm
the
doing that. I feel absolutely exhausted at the end of the day, either way, but it's much easier to get going with, where it's making a video, talking to the camera, or whether it's teaching people one on one or helping people through my courses. That stuff, I get energy from that. And I think that's a way that you can find certain aspects of a job that ultimately will get you a paycheck and make you money, but are actually motivating in the process of doing it. And I think you kind of found that with your job as well.
Yeah, and it takes so much experimenting. I think I was kind of like lucky enough to find it early, and the journey's not done. Who knows? I could do something else in the future, but I think it's right. I think you touched on something there that like it's very romantic, but I like going into like the romanticism of something, like you said about the hedge and just the details, the problems you overcame and stuff like that. And I think that makes something special. Like if you're if you have a task to do as a developer and you make like the best code you can, it's elegant, it's neat, it'll be manageable in 2 years, and you take pride in that. I think that is something romantic, but something to be proud of, and something that will get you there in the end and make you want to do the next one in the same way. And there's a time and place for all those things, especially in business. But I think it makes a difference. Like my mother-in-law, for example, um she started knitting, and she said she was going to make a jumper for me, kind of like this. And she started it like in October, and like every time I came, she was like, "We're gonna get it ready for Christmas." And it was like the arm was done, and she was like, "Oh, I need more wool, and I have this problem around the neck." And it's just like, is the width going to be big enough? Is the trunk or the waist?
Definitely not. I've been in the gym.
Definitely not. Keep getting bigger, you know what I mean? And I was just like, Christmas came and went, and I was like it's nearly summertime, like, and but I seen it, and it was like the parts that were ready were beautiful. It was just blue and white, really bright. And then she came in, I think yesterday, and brought the whole thing. It was just this beautiful big woolly jumper, and it fit to perfection. And immediately I just put it, I was like, give me a perfect hanger. I'm gonna hang it right in my wardrobe. I was like, that is the most special thing to me. It was made by hand. It took 6 months, and I'm gonna value that like forever. And even though it wasn't me that made it, I still
Yeah,
like it was important to me. I seen the detail. She
yeah.
went the amount of balls of wool and yarn that she bought. She must have spent like 60, 70 euro just making it.
Whoa.
And she kept running out because it kept getting thicker and thicker, just the way it was made. And it's just like I'll never forget that. Like I'll keep that jumper there for like the
That's
rest of
not that's class. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's nice to be able to look back on your work. And I think that's why if you're doing like side projects like you're talking about, having a Substack or tracking
Yeah.
your progress or what are it like I like making videos. I'll watch my old videos and think, wow, I made that or whatever.
I did that with music.
Um, yeah, you do with music. And
I
I
do
think
that.
that's something that even if you're so goal driven and you're like, oh, I'm going to make progress, I'm going to get to this job, I'm going to create this lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, it's nice to have things to look back on and be like, oh, I made that or I did that or whatever, tracking your progress.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
why, the why comes into that, I think, a lot. Like it says, like, know your why, start with why. It can be a bit cliche, but I
Yeah.
think for that reason, it matters. If you just had a bunch of projects you didn't really care about, and if you really look back and you kind of went half-hearted on it because you probably didn't really like it in the first place,
I'm getting a bit
it,
of background noise here. Sorry, Dean. Getting
can you hear me?
no, I've got there's a window cleaner here. So
I can't hear it. It's okay.
okay, yeah.
As long as you can hear me. Um, but yeah, I think knowing if you choose any projects in the future, if there's at least some way that you can move towards something that really does resonate with you, that you really care about, or that you could be passionate about, it really helps long term. Because if,
Oh
if you
yeah.
look if you look back and you're like, a couple of projects, I kind of gave it like a decent bit of effort, but I didn't really care. Like when it was over, I was just like moved on straight away. For me, it could feel quite hollow. Um, Whereas like if there's substantial pieces of work that you've done that you're very proud of because you knew why you were doing it makes a difference. So I think it goes back to some of those points I was making about like uh, doing the discovery work because that helps that could give you that motivation. And anything you do, understand the why, understand the options, and make sure you have enough time for it if possible. And you can actually really enjoy it, even if it's not passionate for you. So if you eventually get something that is passionate, you have enough time, you deeply understand what you're building, why you're building, who's it for. Those are three things that actually work magically together because it's enjoyment, it's purpose, patience, calm, and flow all together at once.
Yeah, I think that's a good closing statement, Dean. So thanks a million for coming. If you had anything that you want people to check out or any closing thoughts, let us know.
Sometimes I post on LinkedIn, where you can just find me Dean Kenny, or sometimes on Twitter, Dean Kenny PM, I think. And if you even want to listen to my music, if you like house and techno, it's Dean Kenny on Spotify.
Sweet. We'll add all of those in the description or the show notes or whatever, and people can check them out. So thanks a million, Dean. And I'm just going to end the recording.